Welcome to The Chase, brought to you by Mallard Bay and Falaya. We're here in the Falaya Focus Studio and have a special guest today, Marcus. If you're looking to save a shit ton of money while selling your home, you should head over right now to falaya.com, FALAYA.com, and you're able to save money while selling your home. No need to give all those fees to the agents. Just skip that part and just go right to selling your house. So we're here with Marcus today. And, first off, Marcus, who are you? And kind of, how did you end up here with me right now? And I'll kind of get into what your story is after that.
Yeah, so my name is Marcus. I'm actually from Venice, Louisiana, local down there. Been down there my entire life. Always love hunting, fishing, and that's kind of what drove me to start an outdoors brand, which I made it outdoors instead of just a outfitter brand. So it can always go into different things, hiking, kayaking, stuff like that. Just normal outdoor things. Reached out to you on TikTok and you gave me a chance to come out here and tell my story about the brand, how everything got started.
Right. And the reason it was so interesting to me as a brand in the space is because it kind of strikes a chord. I want to get into exactly your motivation behind it because we hadn't got to talk about that. But the fact that it is centered around mental health and it is about talking about that, and it is something that not everybody finds as comfortable to talk about all the time.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
Right.
And so, what is your story? So how did you kind of get to where you're at right now? Just kind of going from the beginning.
Yeah. So I've always struggled with anxiety. High school, I've had ADD my entire life, which leads into anxiety majorly. A lot of people can relate that. Been anxiety really bad, and then actually what started that the most is the current job that I work at. I work for an oil field company, and I guess growing up, you start to care about your life a little bit more. So you start to worry yourself about everything going on and being around these big cranes and equipment all day. That's kind of what started my anxiety, which then leads into depression. I mean, I'm better now. Everybody's got their own issues, and talking's what's helped me a lot. My wife has been a huge support and huge role in my life, especially with handling anxiety and depression, because men are told to not talk about your mental health.
Yep.
You're supposed to just man up, deal with it, do not cry, don't talk about it. And to me, that's kind of how I was raised. That's how my family was. It was always blue collar, oil field guys. And you don't talk about your feelings in the oil field at all, because you'll get reamed like no other if you even think about talking about them. So that's what I've realized, that talking is something that's helped me, and I'm sure it can help a lot of people. So that's kind of how the idea of this brand got started. I mean, I was thinking about for a while starting a brand, couldn't think of a purpose because I didn't want it to just be another waterfowl brand outdoor brand with generalized, no actual purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So mental health has been something that's been a huge part of my life, and along with a few friends of mine, and I wanted to do something centered around mental health. It's a clothing brand, so I truly don't know how far I can actually go with helping it out, but my plan is to make at least designs for the meantime that kind of start the conversation, ask what it is, and just show support. And a huge part of the brand is, 10% of all the revenue for the company is going to Project Semicolon, which is a nonprofit that's a suicide prevention, suicide awareness nonprofit, and I've done a bunch of research on them. They do a lot of good stuff for the community. So that's the small contribution I can start with. And eventually I want to move on to, doing events and maybe like rodeos and sponsoring stuff like that, and I don't know, set up a booth, start a conversation.
Right. Right. So when you were kind of starting out, just understanding the issues you were having mental health, kind of understanding your anxiety, what did getting to know that look like for you? Because I know for me, it was really the hardest thing was for me to admit to myself that it's a thing. Like I'm actually dealing with this. And then as soon as I did, it actually helped me. Everybody's kind of afraid to acknowledge it because they're like, oh, if I acknowledge it, it becomes real.
Right.
Well, it is real anyway. So you might as well acknowledge it so you can kind of take your first step to overcome it. So what was that for you?
So actually the first time I realized like it wasn't just me being scared of things is actually I was at work one day, all of a sudden, just my emotions came over me like no other. And I had a panic attack. Went and sat in my truck and had first panic attack I've ever had in my life.
Right.
And I thought I was dying.
Yeah.
And, you know, I called my mom. I have great parents that are, you know, huge support for me. And I called my mom. My mom's always dealt with anxiety and her own problems most of her life. And I called her because I had no idea what was going on. I legitimately thought I was dying. Couldn't breathe. I don't know if you ever had a panic attack before, but
yeah.
You can't breathe. You feel all your limbs start going numb and everything. It's because you're about to pass out. But I was hyperventilating myself and having a panic attack. But I called her and described everything to her, and then we sat down for a couple hours after that and just talked about it. And that's when I started to realize, like, I actually had anxiety. It wasn't just thoughts in the back of my head for no reason. It's you know, an actual condition. It's anxiety. And it was one of those things that was kind of hard to realize because at first you feel like you got something wrong with you, like you're not normal. But everybody deals with it. Just not everybody talks about it. You know, I mean, everybody's got their own problems. It's just part of being human. If you don't have problems, you're not human. But
yeah, so it's interesting to hear, you know, you talk about how your mom kind of played a role in, you know, helping you kind of start to understand what it was you were dealing with. Because I was the same way with my mom because a similar thing happened to me. It wasn't necessarily like one particular panic attack that I was actually, you know, just deathly afraid of like getting a terminal illness and dying. And like from that, it kind of like anytime I would like have a doctor's appointment coming up, I would want to like tell my doctor and all of these different things that, or these intrusive thoughts that would come into my head about like having to kind of leave the life that I'm living to like, you know, be sick or whatever. And that was a struggle for me. And my mom is, I mean, she deals with body dysmorphia, which, you know, for women is more than prevalent, like now huge. Than ever. Right.
Social media has made that so bad.
I mean, you know, it started with magazines and then now it's just, I mean, every single time, you know, you scroll through Instagram, it's just, you know, girls that, you know, are kind of putting themselves out there and, you know, kudos to them. But what it causes for other girls is to be self-conscious.
Yeah.
And, you know, that to me was what made me realize, hey, like, it's okay. Like if my mom can get through dealing with that and like, you know, be like in the gym all the time, like constantly motivated and want to motivate other people to go work out. It really made sense for me to be like, okay, like I can overcome this. What really was odd for me was understanding the connection between anxiety and depression and like
that
how
was
dealing
weird for
with that
me too.
was, I mean, for me, the connection between anxiety and depression, I just never understood.
No, me neither.
And I didn't realize that it starts with anxiety and it leads to depression.
And that's exactly what happened to me. I mean, it was last year around this time, and that's what's kind of worrying me again, but is when I went into, I guess what I would call my first real depression. It's cabin fever. Get to where it's daylight savings time, and you know what way my work works is way me going to work. Worded that wrong, but you know I go to work. I get there for 7 a.m. I leave for 5. I leave my house at 5 in the morning. Don't get home till 6:30. So I go to work dark and I come home dark, and never being outside because I work in the office, so I was not outside too much in the daylight. And I think that is what hurt me the most was just not, and it's weird how it works, but I guess it's just nature, but not having any part of being outside in the sun just led me into a massive depression. I mean, I was having my issues at work that was making me unhappy, and that kind of just spiraled. And that was my problem is that I couldn't really understand. I have a good life. I have nothing really to complain about. You know, I mean, I make all right money. I have a beautiful wife at home, and, you know, I don't have any kids yet, but that's going to come eventually. But I really had nothing to be depressed about. I felt like I shouldn't have anything to be depressed about. And that was the part that confused me and I didn't understand for the longest. And I mean, I'm still not 100% over it. It's something you got to work through. I'm better now because I've learned to talk, and it's kind of how all this started. But I don't understand that connection between anxiety and depression, because it's true that anxiety leads to depression. I think it's because you overthink yourself so much because that was my anxieties. I would overthink everything. Like relaying back to work, whenever I started working at the company I work for now, being around all these big cranes and everything, I would just constantly, the entire time I'm working, thinking of all the ways that things can happen, and no, this can kill me, this can kill me, this can kill me. And that's where I guess that started so bad, but then it leads into home, and you become scared to do anything. You stay home all day.
Right.
You don't get out of bed.
Well, for me, and since I kind of experienced, I think the first time I experienced depression was just after my senior year. I guess leaving Lake Charles to go to Baton Rouge, and kind of what I was having to give up there. Like, I was leaving a girlfriend at the time. Like, it was my sister's wedding was at the kind was kind of happening. Everything was seemingly going well, but at the same time, I was having so much anxiety that it was like crippling, and I couldn't even get out of bed. It was it was a real feeling that you only can understand once you've experienced it. Yeah. And then you can't comprehend it until much later. And you're like, oh, that was what anxiety and depression feels like. That is what that was. It wasn't just me overthinking. It was me, thinking that something was genuinely wrong with me. And while something is wrong, technically, it's nothing that other people haven't experienced. It's nothing you can't overcome.
It's normal. It's perfectly normal.
Exactly. And so I guess over time, what I've realized is that, how anxiety and depression are connected is really about the fact of whenever you become so anxious about different things and like what you should or shouldn't be doing to prevent something from happening, whenever you're not acting on that, it's what essentially becomes you're then now not only scared of something happening, you shut down. And the shutting down is what is the depression that comes in, man.
That's the worst part.
And and I haven't been like physically depressed in a while, and thanks to a lot of other things, a lot of it is staying busy, and I definitely understand how going to work in the dark and coming home in the dark and like not getting to be outdoors, like, I mean, that's such a big part of it. And I don't know if you've done any research. I was actually looking up some stats earlier today on how much the outdoors can help that. And honestly, just vitamin D and being in the sunlight and
that's a
things,
major difference.
Because COVID for me was the worst. And I mean, at the time, starting my business during COVID and everything going into that, it was the separation from other people, but it was actually the fear of me even being with other people, because I was worried that COVID was gonna, I was gonna, die from COVID. I mean, it's as ridiculous as it sounds, but a lot of people dealt with it at that time.
Right.
Now it sounds ridiculous, right? But as someone that, at that time was not even, was like, oh, everything can kill you. Basically, it's like how you thought about it, and it really put things into perspective for me. So what was COVID like for you? How did you?
Nothing changed with me for COVID. I mean, the company that I work for slowed down a lot. Business slowed down a lot. So it became, we weren't busy all day. So it became very stagnant to go to work. But other than that, I mean, I'm in Venice, so not much change down there, not much shut down. It's not like we have restaurants and movie theaters or anything to go to anyway. So not that much really changed for us, and both me and my wife are pretty homebody people. So we don't really do much, to be honest. Just go out in the boat and fish and hunt. And that's really about it. But not much changed. COVID didn't have that much of an effect on me, besides dealing with some people like that I was close with, that I guess maybe how you were dealing with it, their anxiety of it was insane. Like, they were so scared to go do anything, to go outside to do anything. They were scared to come to work, and I get that. I didn't deal with it that much, on that aspect, but COVID really didn't change too much for me because we didn't stop. So
Right. And so, just thinking about kind of the tactics that you've used yourself, if you are suffering from it, think about the audience. If you are someone suffering from anxiety or depression, or maybe now after hearing a little bit about how they're connected, you're suffering from both, what should you try to do?
To me, first, the most important, try to talk to somebody. I mean, that's what it's taken me a while to realize myself and to watch a few friends go through it, on how much talking to somebody helps. Even if it's just, you don't have to tell all the details, just to get some stuff off your chest. You don't have to go, if it's just somebody that you're not best friends with, you're just kind of cool with or whatever, you don't want them to know everything that's going on at home, just tell them some. It'll get something off your chest. My thing was opening up to my wife. I mean, I've been with her for almost a decade now, and it's taken me this long to actually truly tell her how I feel about everything. And it's changed our relationship and myself for the better. It's taken a lot of courage to build up and talk about it, but it's helped me tremendously. And I mean, that's the one thing that I can definitely recommend the most, is find somebody to talk to. I mean, next best thing is, or even, a therapist. Therapists have never worked for me because I've found that I fake myself, fake the way I feel in front of a therapist, because it's not somebody I fully trust. I guess eventually over time you can gain that trust with the therapist, but I never got to that point. So that never worked for me. I'm sure people relate to that. And then there's medication, which helps too. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I take medication. There's nothing wrong with it.
Same here.
And that has helped me. I think it's been 6 months now I've been on it, and hasn't stopped everything completely. But my problem is I overthink everything, and it'll be like 15 different things at one time I'm overthinking about. So the medications help me slow it down to one thing at a time. So I can easily distract myself, which that's what's made a big difference. There's a few things that could help out.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you are suffering from anxiety or depression, you definitely have to try talking to somebody you trust. And also I do agree with the fact that, you should definitely talk to your primary care doctor about it. And, to them, they'll know kind of first and foremost, like, what they would suggest. For me, it was like, okay, we're going to put you on a low dose of something for 30 days.
Right.
But if you don't take it every day for 30 days, you're not going to feel any different.
Right.
And as soon as I actually took the time to take something for 30 days, and I'm on Adderall, like I said, ADHD, same situation with you. Once I was on the medicine for 30 days, I was like, wow, like things are improving. Like, at the time, like I was just trying to get my business off the ground, and it really made all the difference in the world in how I felt and viewed things, because you view things in such a negative light,
right,
whenever you are kind of suffering and are in in anxiety and kind of closed mindset in terms of like things that are out there for you, or opportunities that are out there for you.
Right. And see, that's something that I went through. I mean, it was when I first realized I started having anxiety really bad. I went to the doctor. Actually, I was seeing a neurologist at the time because I have chronic migraines all the time. But he started putting me on, low dosage antidepressants. I think I tried 8 different medications over the course of like 8 or 9 months, and none of them worked. I had issues with all of them. Like the ones that would make me feel good mentally, I'd have issues with other things, and I gave up on medication. Completely gave up medication for until 6 months ago. Had 3 panic attacks in like a week, and I was like, oh no, something's got to change. I got to try something. And I mean, I couldn't change the way my life was currently going, so I figured I'd give medication another shot. And I'm on Wellbutrin is what they put me on. And the first couple weeks were weird. Like it made my mindset very, very weird. But after that month, I started feeling great. Better.
Right.
It changed things for me a lot. And that's the biggest thing, is I could just focus on one thing at a time, which I've never been able to do. And that's what actually, originally I went to my primary asking to get back on ADD medication, because I figured that would have been my problem. But she suggested to try Wellbutrin, which is working. So stay with it as long as it works.
Yeah. And I mean, I think what you said there makes a a lot of sense in terms of the fact that most people think it's like a one and done, fix it and you're done thing. And as soon as you start to realize that, oh, like this is going to be something I deal with forever.
Right.
Like, it's not, whether you take medicine or use other tactics that are out there on, whether it be social media or your therapist tells you, like, you're always going to have the opportunity, or there's always going to be an opportunity there for it to creep back in.
Right.
And unless you're doing things on a daily basis to improve yourself and your mindset and how you do things, there's always going to be a chance that it can come in.
Yeah, which most people can't just drop their life and change their lifestyle. I mean, I'm one of those people, I've got bills. I can't just change my life and chase my dreams. I can try to chase my dreams as best I can, but I also have to maintain the lifestyle that I'm currently at. If, I'm at that point in life where I can't, make that change. But, depression is a chemical imbalance in your brain. That's what a lot of people don't realize. They think it's just bad thoughts, but it's like an actual scientific thing. And that's what medication does. It's supposed to balance that out. And each medication is not going to be the same thing for each person. It's going to be different for everybody. I've tried medication that my mom's on. I was terrible on it. I was a walking zombie. Worked perfect for her though. So it's different for each person. I mean, if you're going through that, try out the different medications. It's trouble for a little while, but it's worth it. You're going to find one eventually.
Right.
Sucks in the meantime.
Yeah. For me, with the like just starting on something, like it still comes back to it for me is like, I'm a forgetful person because of the ADHD. Like it's just very easy for you.
In the same way.
And when you are trying different medications and I wouldn't write things off before you're able to take them for 30 days consistently.
That's the thing. I mean, you can't take this medication, any of those. I mean, ADD, depression, antidepressants, any of those, you can't take for 2 days. It's not gonna make a difference. If you take Xanax, that'll make a difference. But like, if you take just like a normal antidepressant, you got to take normal dosage is 30 days. And that's the only time you're gonna tell a difference. I mean, it'd be 2 weeks and you won't even feel a difference at all. And then like that will hit you.
It for me, is like third week. Like, I mean, it may have been third week, midway through the week. And like, I was just getting more optimistic about like serious challenges, serious problems and serious things that were, either facing my business or, facing me personally. And, luckily I was in a place, I was actually in New Mexico when I had started before, and I was in New Mexico for a month, and it's like a very beautiful place to like, to be in.
Yeah, I want to go.
It's awesome. And I, just, it started to make me more optimistic about the challenges in front of me. And from that point on, I understood why doctors tell you to take things for 30 days before you say it's affecting you one way or another. Because in your mind, your mind's a very powerful thing. And you can think yourself into something existing no matter what it is. Yep. And that is what really becomes some of the root causes of why you feel the way you do, is because you're thinking your way into your situation.
I think you just connected on how anxiety leads into depression. Because, I mean, honestly, you can overthink yourself into making yourself believe something's true. Depends on what it is, for each person, but that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I never thought about it like that, but that does make a lot of sense.
Well, it's the same thing. It's the same thing with mindset. And it's why, all these gurus tell you to manifest and all these things, is because, you say it once, you say it twice, you say it 3 times, you say it over and over again every day until it becomes your reality.
Right.
And in noticing that, you have to be careful about what you think about. Like and it's like in the business world, it's discipline thought and discipline action. If you don't, discipline your organization to think a certain way and to do things a certain way, what happens is you don't execute.
Right.
And for me, I didn't understand any of that until I started to actually get a grasp of my own self-care, right? My own part. Because what you don't realize with an organization is each individual person's dealing with a different thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different things coming up in their personal lives that they can bring into the workplace.
Right.
And it's a challenge every day, constantly making sure that not just you are happy with the way things are going, but everyone else is happy the way things, because you all have to be moving in the same direction.
It's a whole different ball game when you're a business owner, because you're then have other people's lives at stake. It's not just yours you're dealing with. And I mean, I've never been there, don't know what it's like, but I've watched I work for a smaller company, so I've watched the owners deal with that every now and then, with the stress of having to please all these, all their employees. I couldn't really imagine that. I imagine it's got to be pretty hard.
It adds a certain element of stress, but the higher the stakes get, the more you actually tend to focus on yourself and better yourself, because you're like, oh, there's so many people counting on me that I've got to lead by example and work on myself more than anybody else, so that way that I can be the best person for the entire organization, all my employees. And with you and your brand, you'll get there one day.
Right.
And the most important thing is about getting started. So just like we talk about getting started with mental health, getting started with a brand and a business is a whole different.
It's a whole different ballgame. And I mean, that's something. I think this is something that's mentally helping me a lot, because for the first time in my life, I feel a sense of purpose. I've never experienced that before. I mean, not a true sense of purpose. It's very minuscule right now, but I see it have the opportunity to grow into something and me actually make a change. And I don't know if that's why God put me on this earth, but I'm hoping it goes that direction, because if this is a change I can help, and that's the crazy part. I'm kind of go off topic a little bit.
Go ahead.
Go to TikTok. There's a couple of videos I've made that's regarding mental health on my personal page, not the brand page has it too, because I reposted on there. But it was just,
I don't think I've seen your personal page.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than what the brand's is, but it was regarding just all the stats of mental health. It kind of became a trend for a little bit. A bunch of other people remade the same video.
Mm-hmm.
I actually took the idea from somebody else too, just because I wanted to spread the message. But I posted it on my personal TikTok, the brand's TikTok, personal Instagram, brand's Instagram. Combined, it's probably got like 400,000 views between all the accounts. The amount of people that have reached out to me that have said, thank you for talking about this, is unreal. That's actually one of the main things that started this. Me and my wife were laying in bed one night talking about wanting to start the brand, and I got a message from somebody. Big old long paragraph from this guy just saying, thank you for talking about this. Wasn't saying like, you prevented anything, but just thank you for bringing it up, bringing awareness. It needs to be talked about. And that's when actually my wife came up with the name. She looked at me and she was like, why don't you make it Mental Health Matters? I was like, that works.
Boom.
That sticks. Yeah, she came up with the name, and that's how the journey started. And just one video on TikTok helped out so many people. I mean, I don't know how much it actually helped them, but I just know a lot of people reached back to me. I had feedback from a lot of people thanking me for speaking up about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I want to do, is talk about it, speak up about, have the conversation, and that's kind of the whole, I don't know if you'd say slogan or concept behind the brand is let's start the conversation.
I like that.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's a big part about why, I wanted to have you on, and honestly, like, hadn't done a podcast like this in a while because I've been busy and, everything like that. And because I feel so strongly about this, and because I, in the grand scheme of things, one of the things that I want to give back to the world is to talk about mental health and my experience with it, and help people understand that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you can go from, a very bad depressive state and make it.
Oh, you can.
And that to me is exactly why I brought you here today to talk about these things, because it's not easy to talk about. And we're strangers. We just met and we're able to talk about this.
Right.
And we're talking about something that, probably we haven't even put out to even some of our best friends and things like that. But because we understand that if there's only one other person that sees this content that will be made and out of this video and help them, and whether they reach out to us or not, it's about that. It's not about anything else. It's really just, I make content on about business and hunting, and the mental health is the third thing that I see myself making content about.
Right. And that's kind of my, my thing about all of this. I don't know how much of a change I can make, but if it's any part of, somebody's life, it could be small or big or whatever. That's what I want. And it's taken me, I don't know if you'd say courage or just getting over it, of just talking about my own problems to people. Because as uncomfortable as it is, even talking about some of this here, like you said, I don't know you. So talking about some of it, it can be uncomfortable.
Well, you know me more, sometimes better than most now.
Right. But just as far as saying, like, I understand that this can help people. So if it makes me uncomfortable for a minute or two to tell the conversation, but it helps one other person, it's worth it for me. And that's kind of where it's at. I mean, I don't know how much I'll be able to do. I have plans down the road to do things. It just, capital is the problem at the moment. But there's ideas I have, like, something that I thought might be pretty cool. I all I have is a little small mud boat that we ride around in and whatnot. But my cousin brought up the idea. He was like, what you should do? He's like, you should take people out on the boat, go fishing, hunting, whatever, and just talk, like almost like a podcast style, make a video or whatever, and just talk about your problems. Not at all be about problems and whatnot, but like just talk about emotions, talk about what's going on. And I was like, that's a good idea. It's something that can eventually come and probably will eventually come, and I got ideas that revolve around content and clothing itself, and eventually moving on to events and stuff, where once, to me, in my opinion, once I can get into doing, and I say events, I mean like hunting rodeos and stuff like that, that's when it can really make a difference, because then you can have those one-on-ones with people. And that's the most powerful thing, is having a one-on-one with somebody.
In person, especially.
Yeah, in person.
And that's the thing about content that I love, and I've started to realize as I put more content out there, is that in a very strange and roundabout way, what you put out there comes back. And it's weird to think about, and until you've kind of put yourself out there on social media, you don't understand it. And I'll be frank, it took me too long to put content out there on social media, but I won't stop now because of how I've seen it come back. And the same thing is like, you being here in person, us getting to talk about this, like, it all happens for a reason. And I, like you, and many others out there, just think that we were put on this earth for a purpose, and in a way we're supposed to be putting this out there for other people to hear.
Right. Well, and that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, it's first time I've ever felt purpose in my life. So I'm going to chase this if it kills me. That's basically where I'm at. It's like, I'm either going to make this work, or I don't know what's going to happen, because I mean, this is kind of my, it's, I guess, really more serious to say, but it's kind of my last hope on me feeling like I have a reason to be here. It's a lot to say and a lot to take in, but that's truthfully how I feel.
Right.
So, I mean, it's one of those things. I'm being ambitious, but at the same time, you got to be ambitious when starting a brand, or a business in general. You gotta have that hope there, but it's just that thing in the back of my head that's telling me it's not going to work. It's not going to work, which I know all the keys are there to make it happen. I just got to make it happen. I'm going to try my best too.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's get tactical about, how I would help your business, like what advice I would give you to help you get your business off the ground. Cause we hadn't got to talk about that. And I want to understand more about, when you say, capital's the issue, what is that? What's the root cause of that for you?
So I don't know if I would actually have a true, like, in-depth, here's what my reason is.
Yeah, right.
But as far as like doing events and stuff, I just don't have the money up front to buy enough inventory to hold an event like that, where you can put a booth up. That's thousands. I mean, we're building a house right now. So that's the biggest thing, is I can't spend any extra money, because when you're building a house, you can't touch nothing. but that's my biggest problem is I just don't have money for inventory because like we talked about before, everything's print on demand right now.
Right.
So not much has came out of pocket. And like, if you go and order something, it's printed on the spot and then sent to you instead of me having 1,000 shirts at home and me boxing it up myself. Now the hats, when they come out, it's not these, but it'll be a different hat that has this logo on it. When they come out, that was something that I used my capital to buy the bulk of. I mean, I only started with 60 hats, but it's what I could do at the time to get started. And then of course, you take the profits from that and you buy more. But hats are easy because you can buy 60 and those 60 can go to 60 individual people and it'll fit all of them because you get snapbacks. But a t-shirt, you got to buy 50 mediums, 50 larges, 50, and of each color. And it gets so expensive, and even if you're ordering thousands at a time, it's still a lot of capital to put up. So that's kind of something that I would have liked to eventually get to the point where I have, I don't know if a warehouse, but even if I'm doing it out of my garage, I'm doing everything myself. I'm ordering in bulk, having an inventory, doing it all myself, me putting my hands on every product. For one, your margins are better. Two, you're actually working a little bit more. You're kind of putting your hands on it. Makes it feel a little bit better,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think the events is what I really want to get into. I don't know how much I could. Everything's so new. It's only been like a month since I've actually launched the brand.
Right.
So ideas are constantly flowing. I know I can't do some of them yet, so I haven't like tried to write out a plan and actually execute them yet.
Right.
So
yeah, no, so first off, I think you're going about it the right way in terms of doing the print on demand.
Right.
I think that that's very tactical in terms of like understanding like what your bandwidth is. Because like you said, with print on demand, it keeps you from having to front that cap. Because what someone who was doing print on demand 6 months from when they started their first business, which is when they bought, like they've already wasted the money buying the inventory. And like I'll personally admit that we at Mallard Bay last season, we didn't do print on demand and we bought all of our hoodie. I wanted a very specific hoodie. I like these independent trading company hoodies are, the best quality. This is what I want.
Right.
And, you front the money for the hoodies and they sell. But whenever you're doing everything yourself, whenever the packaging, everything, it
feels
becomes
so more real.
It becomes so much. Well, it feels real, but it also becomes more of a headache.
Well,
in a sense, because but that's me as the CEO business owner. It's just it's a small part of our company,
right? It's not the main part,
and it can't be a focus of mine to be making sure that these hoodies are getting shipped out. So relying on a print on demand. I don't know what platform you using.
Printify is who I use.
Printify. I've never heard of Printify. I've heard of
Printify and Printful.
Printful.
Those are the two biggest ones.
And I know Teespring is one.
Yeah. So Teespring is a little bit different because Teespring, you have to use their website. So like you set up your storefront on their website.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So like my website's hosted through Shopify. So actually, if I wanted to, I can use Printful, Printify, whatever other print on demand companies and my own stuff. I can throw everything on that website and be able to use it. Or Teespring, that's it.
Right.
So, I like the print on demand for the main reason I went print on demand, mainly capital. Secondly, I don't have time. That's my biggest issue. I work 50 hours a week. I drive an hour and a half each way every day. So it's basically 13-hour day, almost every day I'm working. I don't have time to go home and package, stuff. I got time to go home, eat, sleep, and that's about it.
Right.
So, I mean, the print on demand it's good. The margins aren't the best, but that'll all come down the line. I mean, I'm not worried truthfully, I'm not worried about the money starting out. I just want to get it moving. I know the money will come later, and that's where it's at. Because as beginning any business, anybody that's ever dealt anything with business before understands everything you make in the beginning goes back into the business. You don't get to take any of that home. And if you do, most of the time your business isn't going to work out. So it's kind of just part of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I've always, felt strongly about with the taking money out of the business at the start. It's never been my way of starting business because I chose a unique path. Like not
Right.
everybody tries to build a high growth tech company, and that takes a lot of capital, and it's you're not always gonna you're not always gonna see the fruits of your labor in terms of like cash coming into you.
Right.
And I think that you're thinking about it the perfect way in terms of like, you're already thinking about putting every dollar back into the business.
Mhm.
You're just starting, you're a month in. It's rare for me. Well, not rare for me to get to talk. Actually, it is rare for me to get to talk to somebody that's just starting out in business. And that's going to change because of the content that I'm putting out there.
Right.
And because I want to help people and business owners, like help them get started.
Mhm.
Because if I look at the grand scheme of things and look back on what I did to start my business, I would do things completely different.
Yeah, and see, I feel like that's an issue with some brands or just companies in general. They don't want to work with each other. Because like I can tell you just from personal experience, I won't say any names, but like from my personal TikTok, I used to talk to some of these brand owners and whatnot, and they were cool, fine, until I asked them about advice on starting a brand. Never heard from them again. And it's weird how that works. I mean, to me, I'm all about helping your neighbor. It's just kind of the kind of thing to do. You
It's
help.
a Louisiana thing, man.
Yeah, I guess so. You help your people
But
around
honestly,
you.
it shouldn't be just a Louisiana thing.
No, it shouldn't be because it's a good way to live. You help your people. Everybody should be successful, not just me. Why does it have to? There's enough money in this world to go around for everybody.
That's that abundance, that abundance mindset that, whenever you're going through shit, it just isn't, you're not thinking about things the right way. You got to have that abundance mindset,
Right. Well, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, it's really not about the money. And I was actually thinking about that on the drive up here. I was like, I wonder what the number would be a month to see come in until I'm like, okay, time to quit the job. This is what I'm going to focus on it. Cause it's like, it's one of those things where I guess it's just something I got to learn of when would I actually feel comfortable even taking money out of the account.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't made much yet to even take anything out yet. It's
Right.
ambitious thinking, but it's just a thought process. It's like, I don't even, so it's probably just to stay there for a while, until I feel comfortable. But that was just something I was thinking about.
Yeah, man. And honestly, I have available on in my TikTok link in bio, like you can, I do hunting advice or startup tips, and the first person that booked the time with me, we got to, I honestly, it's basically you're booking time on my calendar anytime you want. It's available to go do that right now if you wanted to.
Right.
And so I started to have a call with him, and really he was just looking for, he's like, how do you just get started, get things like, I've got this idea. And he told me this idea, and I was like, dude, that's a great idea. Like, and all he needed was just someone to validate at first and then give him some tactical advice on like what to do after that.
Validation's everything.
Yeah.
I mean, and that kind of was the same route for me for the most part. Actually, before I even started this brand, it was like 2 or 3 months before I even started this, I texted my friend. I was like, hey, let's start a clothing brand. He was like, I'm too busy. I can't. You do it. All right, cool. So I thought about it for a while, came up with the idea, told like 3 or 4, and I got a couple friends, that I'm close with. Brought it to them. They loved it. I was like, cool. Went home, went on YouTube, how to start a clothing brand. Taught myself everything on YouTube. And I mean, that's you could do that nowadays. YouTube's crazy. But that validation of them agreeing it was a good idea, that was it. I kept it secret for a while, until I actually fully launched it. But that validation is a huge, it helps a lot of people. It helps out a lot. So I agree with that.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing that I like to tell people with an idea and people that are just getting started is that, you want to make sure that what you're doing is something you're passionate about.
Right.
And, clearly I see that for you and for anybody else out there. It's really about like solving a problem that you personally experience or an issue that you're really passionate about is what keeps you motivated in the times that are not that glorious.
Right.
Which is when you're first starting.
Right.
And you're having to spend time, and kind of back to what I was saying earlier is when I was talking to this other, young aspiring entrepreneur, he's a truck driver. And, he's asked me like, at what point do I quit? Just kind of like what you were thinking. At what point do I quit my job to focus on this full time? And flat out to him, I said, don't worry about it. You'll know.
Time will come.
You'll know when the time is. And as long as you can take an hour, you focus on your 9 to 5. And if you can focus on your business from 6 to 9, like that's what you've got to do every day to make sure that you put yourself in the best position to succeed in your business. And I didn't have to deal with that since I started in college. I was working at a law firm part-time,
Right.
and the natural step for me was like, okay, now I'm going to focus on my business full time. Like, and luckily I had my parents to support me, and also, my dad to, draw business experience from, and honestly, my own personal experience working in a startup since I was 16, really helped me. And not everybody has that.
No.
And that's what I want to give to other people is to be like, hey, this is something that I know really well. Like, no one that I know other than myself worked in a startup since 16, other than one of my co-founders.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know anybody that has.
It's a whole different way of understanding business and problem solving, because startups are, everything's a fire. Like everything's on fire all the time.
Right.
And you have to function in that. And it kind of goes back to the mental health side of things, is like, you've got to have your own personal tactics for dealing with those type of situations, because, if you say you go out and you have an idea and then you quit your job, all you have is an idea.
You can't do that.
You've got to execute on that idea. And if you're just like, you have maybe 30 to 2 months, 30 days to 2 months, 90 days if you're lucky, of like, okay, you can, suck it up until you start making money.
Right.
Yes, that may create more sense of urgency, and some people, that motivates some people. But if I'm giving you advice, I'm not like, hey, go quit your job. I'm like, hey,
yeah,
I'm more of the Gary Vee style, where I'm like, hey, focus this on your work on your 6 to 9.
Your main income first, and then the second will follow.
Yes.
And that's the thing. There's stages of life where you can do that. If you're fresh out of high school and can still live at home with your parents, you don't have to get a job, and you can focus on creating that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're where I'm at and I'm building a house and I have bills and car notes, and I can't just quit my job
unless you want to, like,
I'll lose everything.
Yeah, exactly. Blow your whole life up. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, and everybody's like, he's like, oh, you got to jump into it full time. And I'm just not one of those people. Yes. Do I think that if you want to get investors to fund if you're a technology startup, right? Do I think that, you've got to show a full-time dedication to your investors to get them to believe in you? Yes, 100%. If we're talking about that, like, I'm like, look, you've got to you've got to be all in. You got to be full-time. As if you're full-time at another job, you've got to be full-time at this, and it's got to show.
Right.
Because and then you're working 80 hours a week. Like, it doesn't matter.
See, and that's what a lot of people don't realize about starting a business. They think it's easy. It's not. You don't go from your 9 to 5 job where you get that check every single week. Most unless you're doing flag work or something, most of the time it's that same paycheck you're getting every week. That's comfortable. You get used to that. That is, frozen on the word I'm thinking of. It's a safe feeling to have that.
It's securing.
It's secure. That's what I was trying to think of. It's a secure feeling. When you own a business and you just start your own, my dad's been an entrepreneur his entire life, so that's kind of where I've watched.
It's in
all
your
this.
DNA.
I've watched it firsthand.
I understand.
Yeah, but you don't know when the next check's gonna come. You could have a month where you make 300% less than you made the month beforehand, and then next thing you know, you should manage your money smartly, so you don't have to worry about that. But just talking about it, you might not be able to pay your bills that month and have to get an extension on your mortgage or something like that. It's owning a business isn't easy. Running a business isn't easy. Managing it, is even harder. So I've always found it funny, and that's kind of one of the. I've always wanted to do my own thing. I owned a water slide business when I was in college, and that was kind of my first like actual business. And then I filmed weddings for years too. And
one of the questions I wanted to get into was how you got into filming, but continue.
Yeah. So I did the water slides. I did that for 3 years. That's stupid money in that. But it's incredibly hard work, and you lose your entire summers. But it's good money. But I got tired of dealing with it, so I sold the company, and then that's when I started going back to college. Made it, I think, another 2 years in college. Dropped out again, and I started filming weddings. I think this was when I was working at Best Buy. I was working at Best Buy, and I started filming weddings again. Yeah, it's about the same time. Started filming weddings. I've always had cameras. My dad's one of them people where everywhere you see him, he's got a camera in his hand recording everything. So I've always had
That's my mom in my family.
Yeah, I've always had some equipment to kind of start with and learn. And when I started filming, it didn't start with weddings. I've actually always been into the car scene pretty big. So on the South Shore at the lakefront, every Sunday they have all kinds of cars that would go out there. Oh, wow. So I would just go out there and film cars on the weekends. And at like NOLA Motorsports, where they do the drift events, I'd go out there and film them. And that kind of started me into filming. And then I got, it was a family friend asked me to film her wedding. Did it for free, didn't charge her nothing. And it was the first wedding I filmed. And then I did a decent amount after that, and it's all right money, but it wasn't enough for me to do full time. And editing a wedding, it takes a couple weeks, depending on your workflow, but for what I was trying to do, it takes time. And I couldn't manage doing a full-time job and it at the same time. And it's one of those, I guess, self-confidence things where I never felt like I was good enough to actually charge what I should have been charging. I was charging like $1,000 to maybe $1,500 to film a wedding, which is, if you know anything about that, dirt cheap. So, but that's kind of what started the whole filming thing. And I've always been into it, dropped it for years. And then I started filming TikTok. I started playing around with TikTok. And then my personal one kind of took off. It was all stuff revolving around my boat, hunting, fishing. We all got mud boats and a bunch of goons going out there with them. So it gets good content. And then, have you ever seen Caleb Passman?
Yeah, man. He commented on some of my stuff.
Yeah. So he's got the same exact camera I do. One of my buddies sent me his TikTok and he was like, Marcus, you got to up your game up. And I was like, all right, I went on that video. You can go find it too. I said, let me order a camera real quick. And that day I went and bought my camera. And now that's what I use to film my TikToks with, which his content, he's got it down pat. I'm still kind of learning the TikTok format on everything. It's completely different than what I'm used to. And also filming on boats, like physically on a boat when it's running is so much harder than filming weddings. Cause like you film a wedding, you got your big old stabilizer and everything and you just walk around, you're just bugging a wall. There's not waves and you're not moving 40 miles an hour trying to film something. So like getting steady shots is hard. And
so it's not just using a stabilizer on a boat. Like it doesn't just like,
I haven't actually tried to bring it. Well, I want to bring it on the boat with me, but I'm worried.
That's a call to action for Caleb. Caleb, you got to tell us how you're getting stable shots on the boat.
Well, I know he edits all of his stuff in Premiere, which you can use warp stabilizer and stabilize majority of your stuff. Which I'm familiar with Premiere. I just do everything on my phone for the most part because it's so much faster and easy. And
which phone editor do you use?
CapCut.
Okay, yeah.
It is insane.
If I do something on my phone, I use that.
Yeah, it's insane how far along like apps for video editing has come along.
Yeah, well, CapCut got bought by TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the editor in TikTok is now CapCut.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so when you put a video in TikTok now, you just put the raw video in there. You click captions and it pulls up the CapCut editor, which is crazy.
I didn't know anything.
TikTok's going after the whole.
Oh, I know they're going to too. It's TikTok's scary how big it's getting. It's unreal. And the algorithm is the most mind-boggling thing ever. Yeah. I was one of those people that you couldn't get me to download TikTok. Like for like a year and a half.
Me too, man.
I was like, there's not touching it. Not touching it. China's going to come after me. Not touching it. So I didn't. And then I got tired of my wife sending me links and me having to go to the Safari and watch it. And I was like, whatever, I'm going to download it. And now I'm creating stuff on TikTok. And now this brand mainly started because of TikTok. So it's like, it's crazy how things work. But
well, man, it's where the attention is.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's crazy. It's how a lot of my videos work. You'll have one video that gets 300 views. The next thing you know, you got one that's got 400,000 views. You still only got 1,000 followers, but that one video's got a lot of recognition. And I mean, that's the crazy part about brands. It takes one video that has your brand in it, and it's going to maybe not take off and become this, major thing. It's going to help a lot. The power of social media nowadays it's insane, especially with TikTok. Facebook is still a huge thing for ads and everything, but just the opportunity that is there on TikTok, it's insane.
Right. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. And so many people that I know, and not me personally, I guess the first time really when I started using TikTok was during the pandemic, I guess. Same. And before then I thought, I was like, oh, what? I didn't know about it when it was Musical.ly, but then became TikTok, and
it always was a kids app to me.
Yeah.
Or childish stuff.
I thought that the content that you put on TikTok had to be dances and trends and everything, and like I still think people think that, which is crazy, because
I'm like I do.
And kind of what you said earlier, talking about Caleb and the way he creates content versus the way you create content versus the way I create content, is everybody's got their own way.
Oh yeah.
And the algorithm likes different things.
Right.
And without kind of experimenting and one, putting yourself out there and trying different things, you really don't know what's possible.
Right. I'll tell you, Caleb's got it figured out pretty good. All of his views are pretty consistent. I mean, I've figured out quality is a cheat code on TikTok. If you, like 90% of the time you put out high quality, like as far as the video itself being like high quality, it's gonna get views most of the time. But that's like, there's a few other pages, waterfall pages I follow, that just the content, the quality on it is just through the roof, and they're blowing up like no other. And it's not even brand content or branded pages. It's just people that have a background in filming that also love hunting, and they going out there with a camera.
Yep.
I mean, I've always wanted to be one of those guys that go and you put a ghillie suit on, you got your big old lens, and you go out there and capture the really cool stuff. But we're in southern Louisiana, so all you get is gators, cranes, or fish.
Right.
You don't have foxes and pretty bears and stuff to go take pictures of. But I'd like to travel and do that kind of stuff one day.
Hey, one day.
It's gonna be there one day. It'll be there one day.
And yeah, honestly, just thinking about kind of what you've brought here, your merch. Talk a little bit about these two.
So these are
you brought.
Two of the first designs,
and then what you're wearing as well.
Yeah, this I actually literally just got the sample in today, and I just put it back I put it actually out on the website today. But the shirt over there is like the staple, the OG that's never gonna leave. Just the OG logo, and I actually have it. It's a bunch of different colors. You get the logo in white and black, and I have this camo for that logo. So there's a shirt with like the logo is this camo instead of the shirt being, and then this shirt is just that same shirt but camo with the logo on it. And then I'm actually still got a few more to make, but this will be a line itself. It's gonna be it's not about the hunt line, which I feel a lot of people relate to. And this is something that has personally myself started the conversation a few times because people didn't understand it. They're like, what does it mean? Wouldn't it be all about the hunt? And I'm like, no. I'm like, it's different. I'm like, for a lot of people, hunting is not about hunting. It's about being out there in nature, and just, it's a safe space. It's a place to just get out, relax, not think about the rest of the world. So that's what it's not about the hunt means. And I mean, I got one. This has a wood duck. I got one.
That's great, by the way, because whenever like I didn't know that. Well, it's not that I didn't. I mean, yeah, maybe I didn't.
You didn't catch it.
Well, I didn't catch it, but I mean, hearing you explain it, I'm like, oh shit, that makes so much sense.
Some people, a lot of people have actually got it. It be from one of my TikToks. That's where that quote's from. I made a TikTok. It was like, people hunt their entire life before realizing hunting. The reason they hunt is not about about the hunt, and it blew up. Got some decent views. I don't say blew up for my standards of views. This was before I even started the brand, but that was something that carried on. So I got, this one has a wood duck. I have one with a deer, one with a turkey. I'm going to make some with geese and other hunting
we got some designs if you want to piggyback.
I mean, it's whatever you want. I mean, I could take as much help. I mean, I'm doing everything myself. And I said, actually, on the way up here, I was talking to my wife. I want to get me an iPad so I can actually start drawing designs, because I don't know how much you follow the waterfowl. I got to get off of the waterfowl because that's what I'm into the most, but I don't want that to be the only thing this brand is part of. That's why I made it outdoors, not waterfowl, because I want it to be broad. But it's hunting season, so I feel like right now I'm kind of leaning into that towards the most part.
Lean into it now. But
yeah. And then, once summertime comes, that's when you can get into all the other stuff. But I was actually talking to her because if you follow the brand space, what's in Combat Waterfowl is a brand I bring up all the time. I mean, those guys are amazing. Their designs are next level. They're like legitimately cartoon art pictures of just waterfowl stuff. That is, some of them's hilarious and some of them's just really nice. But they're all like, you look at it and it looks like a drawn picture.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't do that on a computer. I mean, if you get a tablet, you can, but that's weird to draw on. So I want to get an iPad so I can actually draw and make more designs, which, I mean, I've been playing around with Photoshop and all the Adobe products since basically junior high, in high school. So I'm pretty familiar with it. But I want to get into some more artistic and real ones. There's actually one I just made this weekend. That's really awesome. And the tagline on it is, "Tomorrow needs you." Is that what it says? Actually, hold on.
That makes sense if it
I think that's what it. I just made it.
Are you familiar with Bronchopper Creative?
Yeah, Tomorrow Needs You.
I like that. Tomorrow Needs You. Oh,
Yeah,
that's the design too.
That's the design. That'll go on the back of a t-shirt.
I like that.
Just something that it's more general, but can look pretty good. What was the brand you said?
Bronchopper Creative. It's actually she's a one woman show, but she did the dive bomb logos. And
okay. I haven't heard of her.
Yeah, she essentially kind of is working with us on a project.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of our design. She's redesigning our logo and things like that. So we could possibly do some collaboration with a shirt.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be down.
And honestly, we need to do some more t-shirts because we're out of the merch game at the moment. We're working on getting back into it. Like I said, I mean, you design your camo right there, and I'm not sure even how they put that on the shirt. But
how this is made.
Yeah.
So all of the shirts that I have, it's not a heat press. Like most of, especially startup brands, they do heat press shirts because it's the cheapest thing to do, and you could do it at home yourself. And you could start an entire thing for like $300,
right?
With Amazon stuff. So what all these shirts are, it's called DTG,
direct to garment.
Direct to garment.
Yeah, I'm coaching. This guy started a company, LA Revival, who does direct to garment here in Baton Rouge, specializing in oversized prints. But he's in the same office building as us, so
right.
I'm slowly getting more familiar with the direct to garment and that the print on demand just because of him.
Well, and that's what the direct to garment's awesome because you don't feel it. Like that's what I hate about heat press shirts is like if you especially have a big logo like this on the back of your shirt.
Oh yeah, you're right. You don't feel it.
You can tiny bit feel it. But like if this was a heat press, it feels like a big old stickers on your back.
Right.
I never could stand those. But like to how this shirt is made, it's made in pieces. So like they will print this onto a cut piece of fabric because shirts are a couple pieces. Yeah. So they'll print onto that one piece and then sew it together, and that's it. So like these shirts are just blanks that they'll just print each side on, where this is they're printing the entire fabric, and you have to feel this shirt. But this is so soft, which I'm so happy with the way this came
soft,
out.
Honestly, that was.
Well, that's what I was worried when I made the design because I was like, I don't know how this is going to come out. So I ordered a sample, and then I got that sweatshirt over there that I ordered a sample of too in the same camo. And I was like, depending on how it is, I might put it on the website. And I got it in today, and I felt it. I'm like, oh, no, this is going up. Like, I'll be making more stuff like this for sure. I mean, I don't know if this will be like the MHM camo or what. I mean, this is the one camo I've designed so far, and it's that old school, look, which I like the modern, like the Max 5 camo a lot more, but it's copyright and all that stuff. You got to have money to be able to put that on clothing. So it's just not there.
You went about it the right way doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And so kind of just one last question for you, out of all the things we talk about, or out of all the things we talked about here, what is your call to action for those that listen or see any of the content that we put out from this?
So, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is, everybody has their own issues. We all face it. It's not something to be worried about. It's not something to be embarrassed about. Talk to somebody. Find somebody to talk to. Your life's not over. It might feel like it at the time, but find somebody to talk to. This brand is a start to, start the conversation with people, and that's kind of where it's at. So you wear this, you have it on your back, and people can say, what does that mean? What is that there for? And, you might open up to them. Who knows? And that's kind of the thought process behind it. But my biggest thing, it don't even have to revolve around the brand. Just talk to somebody. Help yourself out. Because, I mean, tomorrow needs you. God doesn't need you yet. You're put on here for a reason. Suicide's a very big thing, especially in men. I mean, I think it's like 130 or 140 men a day kill themselves, and the attempts are like 15 times that. So like thousands of men a day try to kill themselves, and men's suicide takes up 70% of suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that this isn't only for men, but that's something I'm definitely leaning more towards, because it's men don't talk about their mental health,
Mm-hmm.
and so many people take themselves out because of it, and it's got to change. Something's got to change.
Yep.
So, be part of this brand, and let's make a change together.
Yep. Well, you couldn't have said it any better. And I encourage anybody that's out there watching this, or have seen a piece of content from this podcast to go to their website, mhmoutdoors.com, support the brand. 10% is going to go to
Project Semicolon,
which is essentially focusing specifically on helping people, preventing suicide, helping people overcome anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, whatever it is that they may be struggling with. And, also if you're interested in kind of talking more about startups, want some advice from me on hunting, or really just want to talk about anything that you're struggling with, you can go to the link in my bio and set a meeting with me. Pretty open there. And you can just go do that if you're interested in having a conversation. Well, Marcus, thanks for joining us. I'm glad we got to meet in person and do this, and got to talk about some things that other people struggle to talk about. But hopefully, one piece of content at a time will bring that to a stop.
It'll come over time. I appreciate you letting me come on and get a chance to talk about everything.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. All right.